Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spend a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path, because every trail has a story, and this one's ours.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Adam Lowe.
And I'm Chris Earl.
And I'm Katie Lowe.
Chris and Katie, I am so excited to have one of, if not the fastest marathoner who lives in the state of West Virginia with us today. Woody Snoberger is here, and I think he's in the Masters category now, but I think I remember about 3 years ago, he told me that he was going to run JFK when he turned 40, and he still has not run JFK. So I think he's still 39, and he's just holding out on us. But I am super excited to talk to him today. So, Woody, welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I've wimped out on the JFK a couple times.
But I'm sure make your debut soon.
There are still spots open, but they're limited. So act now, Woody.
Before we jump into some recent races that you've had done and just some information about you as a runner, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself? Where do you live? I know I just mentioned West Virginia, but what do you do for a living? What's your family life like? And just some basic information about you.
Yeah, I live in West Virginia, in Ridgely, West Virginia. So right on the border of Cumberland, Maryland. Might be a place people know better than Ridgely or Carpendale. Got a wife and two kids, 14 and 11. Been married now for 21 years almost, or 22 years almost. Going on 22 years. Got married very young. And, we're really, really busy all the time. It's between coaching, running, work. Both my wife and I are teachers at the same school. So that's about the only time we get to see each other anymore, it seems like. We're just always in passing. Or when we go on these marathon trips. Yeah.
Do you guys have the same planning period or the same lunch?
We have the same lunch. So, yep, that works out pretty nicely for us.
That is good. Well, what first got you into running, and then what keeps you coming back to it?
I'd probably say, and you know him, Mr. Mickey, because I believe you student taught with him possibly. So Mr. Mickey was my middle school gym teacher. And back then we used to do the presidential physical fitness test, and we had to run the mile. And I did okay. I ran decent. I ran like about a 6:01, I think it was. I didn't do any other fall sport. I was a baseball player, and he knew that. So he's like, "Hey, you ever thought about running cross country?" And I looked at him, I was like, "What is that?" I didn't even know what cross country was. I didn't know it was a sport. He basically just told me, he's like, "Well, I can guarantee you'd make varsity on your freshman year, and you get to ride the bus with pretty girls." And then I was like, okay, yeah, where do I sign? And little did I know, we only had 5 guys on the team, which just made just enough for the team anyway. That's kind of what got me started. What kept me going, though, was seeing that constant improvement and kind of the fact that you get out what you put in, and you didn't have to rely on the rest of the team to get individual success. It's nice having the team success, but you can still have individual success even without the team aspect of it. So seeing that, and then having, someone like him to look up to. I was always trying to, I guess, for lack of a better word, I looked up to him a lot. So he was like a second father to me. And that was really another one. I want to make him proud. So I just kind of stuck with it until then. It's like anything else, I got hooked.
Well, was there a moment that you realized that running was more than just a hobby?
I'd say probably by the end of my freshman year. Like I said, I played baseball all the way up through. And so when I ran cross country in the fall, I still thought I was going to play baseball in the spring. And I did. I actually did both. I played baseball, and then I ran track. And at the time, I wasn't sure which one I was going to do moving forward. But after a while, I started seeing some success, especially in track season, because I'd been running almost for a full year, and started running some times that I thought were pretty good. Ran under 5 minutes in the mile for the first time that year. Ran under 11 in the 2 mile, and started placing pretty high in local meets. And I kind of thought, well, maybe there's more of a future for me here than there is in this, baseball realm. because I was an okay baseball player when but I definitely was not great.
Yeah, so you mentioned that your cross country coach had a influence on your running journey. Do you still maintain contact?
Actually, believe it or not, I live maybe a quarter of a mile away from him now. I moved very close to him, and when I started teaching at Frankfurt Middle School, which is where I teach, he was still the gym teacher there. He retired since then, but as soon as he retired, I talked him into coaching with me in track. So now he is technically the girls' head coach while I'm the boys' head coach in track, and so we actually get to see each other every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember back in 2004, I think, is when I was at Frankfurt Middle and Mr. Mickey was my student teacher mentor, I guess. So, yeah, we do have that in common. Great guy, great teacher. And yeah, I'm glad I was able to work under him for a little bit when I was there. Woody, I know that you are a very plan oriented runner. From what I can tell, you like stick to the plan when you have it. I know like Kevin and I often will text and ask you, hey, do you want to come run this 12-mile race? And you're like, nope, I got a 12-mile easy run that day, or whatever it may be. But what does a typical training week look like for you when you're in that marathon prep?
Okay, so I'd say, well, in marathon prep, obviously more miles, but I'd say it's mostly easy miles, I'd say, but I do, like at my peak, like in my mid 30s, I think I probably peaked at about 120 miles a week. Usually, like a week might look like a Sunday long run. Monday would be something like just a regular 10 to 14 mile run. Tuesday would be some type of double where I might do 10 miles in the morning and 15 miles in the evening. And then a Wednesday would be like one of my workouts. Thursday would be another double like Tuesday. Friday would be something kind of like Monday. And then Saturday I'd have like another run and then Sunday back to long run. And then maybe throw in like something on the long run if I wanted to. Now, as I'm getting older, I realize I can't really do those doubles like I used to, like a 10 and 15 takes so much out of me. So now I still hit close to 100 miles, 110 miles a week at my max, but I might only do that like once or twice in a cycle versus, you know, 7 times in a cycle. And I do a lot more doubles, but they're shorter. So instead of like 10 and 15, I might do a lot of fives and then 12s, like 5 and 12 or something like that. Still keep the basic premise though the same with kind of like in the marathon cycle, I'll probably do like a marathon, like a workout on a Wednesday that might be a little bit more speed oriented, and then a workout on a Sunday in the long run that's a little bit more marathon oriented. And then if I'm not marathoning, I do it a little bit differently. Long runs are easy, and then I just do 2 kind of structured days in the week, like maybe a Tuesday, Friday.
Well, with all that mileage and the workouts thrown in, how do you balance those with the recovery?
That's a good question. I would say I try to prioritize sleep as much as I can, but that's always easier said than done with, a family. So it's like we're always kind of on the run. But I guess the biggest thing is I try to sleep when I can and try to get to bed at a decent time. But also I try like when I'm not running or working, I just try not to do a whole lot of other extra things other than stuff with my family and stuff that really still pours into me. Because if I'm working with my family, it's not, I feel like I'm still recovering, even if I'm doing outside with the kids or whatever. I still feel like I'm recovering. So I guess it kind of works out. Although I still get the injury bug every once in a while too. So, you know, definitely not perfect in that sense.
I don't think many of us are. Well, how do you when do you get up early and run? Do most of your workouts before work or do you do it afterwards? I was just curious because you are very busy. We can definitely relate with that. So I am always looking for tips.
Sometimes like I have done the really early morning things. One of the occasionally, although now my schedule works out a little bit better that I have planning at the end of the day. And so I'm able to get out and run because my school's been very like as long as I get my work done, they're okay because I'm still on campus. So I'll go out and I'll run a little bit during my planning period. Be an easy way to kind of get some of my doubles in, so I don't have to get up as early. And then because I do coach cross country and track, I feel because Mr. Mickey did this with us when he coached us, he ran with us all the time. So I get a lot of my running in by just running with the kids I'm coaching. Now mostly my stuff's focused on them, but if I'm just on easy running, I can go run with whatever group or do whatever, and it's not. It's an easy way to at least get some extra mileage in. So a lot of it's just trying to find those little bits of time where I'm actually doing two things at once, kind of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do you track your planning period runs on Strava the way some people do?
Oh yeah, yeah, they're on there.
Well, Woody, I actually label them like planning period run number 17, planning
Oh, I
period
should
run.
do that.
So that way, by the end of the year, I know how many times I went running during my planning period.
I should do that, but it might end up being for me. It might end up being planning period 180.
Yeah.
So when you're in a marathon block and you're doing some extra hard workouts in there, what's one workout you swear by, and then what's one that you really dread?
The marathon stuff, I really like most of the marathon workouts because they're not overly intense. It's just more of grinding workouts, and I feel like I've always been pretty good at that. If anyone's like that's ever seen me run knows I'm more of a shuffler than I am like a thoroughbred. You know, you see some guys out there that just look like they just float. I'm not that guy. Like my form is, yeah, I shuffle along. I got the marathon shuffle. I've had that since I started running. So I always really enjoyed the lactic threshold stuff and the marathon workouts in general. So, I mean, some of the ones I really liked, one of the ones I did for this last one, I really liked, but it was hard. And I remember when I wrote it and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this one. We did a long run. It's kind of what I use as a Boston simulator. And I did 3 by 10K, where I ran did the first 10K at like marathon pace plus 10 seconds or so. The second 10K at about marathon pace, and then the last 10K was like marathon pace minus 10. And then it only had like 5 minute jog in between each 10K. So it was like pretty much continuous. When I got done the run, including the I ran another 5 minutes after just because I was connecting with some other people. Ended up running over 20 miles at like 6:12 pace or something like that, just in that run. That kind of gave me that point, okay, I'm ready. I really liked that one. That was one of those, but I tried it like once in the summer and I died. So I had a good day. So that helped a lot. Workouts like that though, I really like that one. I have another one I use a lot. It's called the 2 times 5 and go, where it's like 5 miles at marathon pace, and then you run 1 mile hard, then you take like a bit of recovery, maybe like 2 miles or so, and then you do it again. So no, it's a pretty solid workout. The ones I dread are anything that deals with speed. If you throw me on a track and I'm doing anything that's like 3K pace or faster, I do them because I know I need them, but I'm always like I don't know. It's just that when I start going anaerobic, and I've noticed as I've gotten older, there's a fine line. I can run a certain pace. I can hit like 6 minute pace or 550 pace or whatever, like a certain way. But if I go 1 second below that, I start getting anaerobic. I'm like, what in the world? Like I used to be able to, like I used to have a buffer. Like that buffer zone's getting smaller and smaller.
Woody, I can tell you for sure that all those workouts sounded horrible to me. So
Well, you better get ready for them.
I know. Hey, so let's let you see how I avoided that. Let's talk about your most memorable race. We're gonna change over a little bit like that. So what was your let's bring it up first. What was your most memorable race that you had?
I'd say I really have like two, and one of them you probably already gonna know was the Boston Marathon 2018 for multiple reasons. Number one, the weather. Like the weather in that race was atrocious, to say the least. I still get like every time Boston comes around, one of my friends posts a picture of his where his wife was in the diner and just videotaping the rain coming in sheets across the ground. Like you could see the wind. It was that bad. It was just, I mean, it was awful. But I had probably the best race of my life that day, and still, in a way, like easily my claim to fame as a runner, finishing in top 100 at the Boston Marathon. Which no matter, I don't care what the weather was, it doesn't matter what my time was, I can still always say I was top 100 because that time normally wouldn't get me anywhere near it. In fact, this year I ran almost the exact same time, and I finished like 800 places worse than I did that year, just because of the better weather and people dropping out and everything else. So, but I still finished that top 100. But that race was, just some of the things, and I'll if some of the details I could still remember, of course, besides the weather, talking with Mike Spindler before the race, we had talked about what the goal was. Because originally going into that race, I was in probably the best shape of my life. I think, in all honesty, if I had a perfect day, like a day, I would say like the day we had this last time, I'd have run 228, maybe even 227 with that, with a little bit of because I was in great shape. I was knocking workouts out of the park. Like I said earlier, 120 some miles a week, handled the training well. But, so going into it, I was like, okay, I'm going sub 230. Like that's, even on a, like, that's a decent day. I'm going sub 230. And then we get the weather forecast and I even remember I went to the room and my room number at the place that we stayed it was 230. So like Mike was like, oh, it must be a sign. But then of course, like we said, we got the weather forecast and we just kind of threw the time out the window and we talked about what was the other goal. And of course I told him I wanted to be top 100, which, I didn't know that at the time, but that was always a goal that he wanted. He always wanted to be top 100 and he came close in the duel in the sun year. So he had said we kind of talked about what to do in that race because I couldn't just run for time. So the plan was to leapfrog. That's what I did the whole way down from Hopkinton down to Boston is kind of played leapfrog. Even before the race though, and I tell you like that's I heard on your last episode you talk about the benefit that we kind of get in a situation that we have where we don't have to sit in athletes village and freeze. That probably was another reason I competed as so much better than a lot of people that were maybe as good or better than me on that day is because they were freezing in athletes village before the race and I was sleeping in a van and I actually had my own porta potty basically because there was construction going on and we found it. Then I didn't have to worry about going in there until I think I went to the start line like 10 minutes before and just jumped in the corral. And so I wasn't out there very long. So all those things just kind of added up to that race. Then we leapfrogged. Like I said, the goal was to leapfrog down. And he said, just run with the group. When that group feels like they're moving too slow, go around the group, find another group ahead of you, get to that group. So when you like, if I go back and look at those splits from that race, you'll see like miles where it's like I'm running like 545, 550, and then I might settle down and I'm running 6 or 610, and then all of a sudden I jump back to like a 550, and it just kept on doing that. But as I was going, I just kept moving up. But it was funny because a lot of people had similar plans. So when I got to like about 5K to go, Mike was there and he said he would be there. He was like, I'll be there and I'll have an accurate count for you. And so he was there, of course, freezing to death on the side of the road on his bike. And he looked over, I could hear him. I looked over and he's like, 101, 101. And I looked over and I said, I looked at him and I know I gave him this face like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way. Because I could see a line of people in front of me. I still thought I was maybe 200, 250. Like, I thought I kind of had no chance. And when he told me that, I was like, wow. So then I passed 5 people immediately. And then from there to the end, it was like, okay, just pass more people than pass me. And I've got this in the, and sure enough, I was able to finish that off. And then, of course, the funny story that I know you've heard from Adam, I know you've heard from Mike a couple times about him going to the laundromat after that. That was pretty interesting picking him up from there because he was talking about how he was stripped down to his boxers and threw his clothes in the dryer in the laundromat in Brookline and waited for us to come pick him up. He's like, I'm not going back out there.
I think Mike's told us that story every year going up to Boston since 2021. So yeah, but it never gets old. What a story that is. Hey, Chris, can you maybe put the 2018 weather in the show notes for our listeners? The actual rain and wind. Should we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Katie, check my math here. There's been 130 Boston marathons. So the top 100, that means there's only ever been 13,000 people to be in the top 100 at the Boston Marathon. So that's pretty incredible, Woody. That's a select few.
It's
group of
probably
people.
smaller
So,
than that though, because some of them have been in the top 100 multiple times. So
oh, that's right. Yeah. All right. So let's say 12,193.
I like that. I like that.
That's pretty cool. All right. What was the second race that was your other most memorable one?
Well, the second one I would say was in college. So little bit of a backstory. I went to West Virginia Wesleyan in college, and in my second year there, I got my first kind of major injury. So I went all through high school, nothing really major other than a day or two, and then in college in my sophomore year, I had a stress fracture. And in that time, I probably took, it was supposed to be a 6 week injury, but then I had to redshirt that year. So I ended up taking almost 6 months completely off, probably the first time since I started running. I never took any time off like that. So coming back was kind of tough. But a year and a half after that injury, I was in the 10K at the conference championship race. Ended up actually winning the conference 10K in college. It wasn't a super fast race. It was a very tactical race. What I kind of there's a couple of things that I remember. I was the number 2 seed going in. My teammate was the number 1 seed going in, and the 3 seed was about 30 seconds on paper slower than us. So because of that, we told each other that our goal, of course, is to win, go 1-2. That's what we want to do, 1-2. We didn't care which one. Well, I mean, we overall we cared. Like I wanted to win and he wanted to win, but since we were teammates, we're gonna work together to try to pull away from everyone else. And then at the end, last mile, it's every man for themselves. Whoever wins wins. So in that race, him and I, we our plan was we are not gonna take the lead at all. We're not going to do any leading until at least 2.5 miles of the race. Our goal was somewhere between 2.5 and 5K. So somewhere in that range. And then at that point, we'll make a move if we feel up to it and go from there. So the race went off and everyone's looking to me and him. And we're practically walking off the line. Like we're going so slow, like painfully slow. And we go through 200 and I mean, it was a jog through the first 200, like a flat out jog because everyone's looking to us and we won't take the lead. So finally, a kid from Wheeling takes the lead and kind of leads us through in a decent first lap, but gets us going on probably about 5:30 pace after the mile. We're probably hitting around 5:30 or 5:35, which for a conference 10K still pretty tactical, but not out of the range slow. Because if we would have kept going at what we were going, we were probably gonna hit the first mile in like 7 minutes. Because we were gonna run like a 43-minute 10K in a conference cross country, like or conference track, which for those guys would have been really slow. Because going in, both me and my teammate had mid 32, like 32:30 10K PRs going into it. So um, so like I said, the first he takes over. So both me and him, boom, we get right up on the kid, and we just go 2.5 miles. At right before the 2.5 mile mark, my teammate, who is the number 1 seed, he looks over at me and goes, "Are you ready? All right, guys, we're gonna make the move on the next lap. Are you ready?" And even though I was the older one, I was like, I kind of want to wait till 5K. It's like I kind of want to wait till 5K. He's like, "Well, I'm making the move on the next one, so you can go with me or not." I was like, all right. So we go around the next lap and boom, he takes the lead and I go with him. We go from running probably like 82s all of a sudden to run like a 70-second lap. So we like drop a big lap all of a sudden. So he goes through the lap and then as soon as we pass the finish line, I take over the lead and I start going and I probably run like a 75. Like I'm slowing it down a little bit, but keeping the pressure on. I come through the finish line. Now we're at 3 miles. It's not even halfway yet. We're 12 of 25 laps and he doesn't pass me back. So I'm like, well, maybe he wanted me to lead 800. So I just keep going. So I go lead another lap, 75, 77, somewhere in that range. And I get back to the finish line again. He doesn't pass me. So then I look, I'm like, well, I'm not doing this whole thing by myself. So as I'm going around the corner, I take a look over my shoulder and I see that I have like a 30-meter lead on everybody. And the second place guy is not my teammate. It's the other kid. It's the 3 seed. A small backstory with that, my teammate 2 weeks before the conference race was playing dodgeball, like Greek week, and he tore his pec muscle. He took a week off, and then the week of the race he was feeling okay, but when we made that surge, all of a sudden he couldn't breathe because that area was so sore that he just couldn't breathe. So now I'm sitting there in first place. I'm about halfway through the race, and I know now deep down I'm like, I can't let this guy back in the race because this guy's from another team. If I let him back in the race, he's going to think he can win. So now I've got the rest of the race where I've got to keep the pressure on. So I keep going every lap, and every time I get around the lap, I take a quick look over my shoulder on the curve, see, okay, am I gaining or is he gaining on me? And every lap I was just getting a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And at the end of the day, after 25 laps, I think actually on the 24th, I think I had about a 70 or 80 meter lead. And I knew then, like, there's no, as long as I don't fall over, I'm gonna win this conference championship. And I remember like my coach, Coach Skiles, he was quite the one of the best coaches, like underrated. He had more conference championships than any coach in any sport in NCAA history at the time. Just amazing coach, and he's looking at me and he's singing Eminem, because he's like, "Look who's back," and then he like as I'm going through the last step, like, "Smile, baby, you're conference champ." I'm still got a low lap to run, and I'm grinning ear to ear because it was just that whole comeback from my first major injury, a year and a half of kind of frustration of trying to work my way back because I was the number one runner on the team when I got hurt, and then I had to work my way from almost being like JV back up into and finally getting that real first conference championship. And it wasn't a great, like, it wasn't a super fast time. The time is kind of irrelevant. It was just the fact I won it, and which is pretty awesome. And I can say that I won that conference championship. And when I look at the conference now, and like what I ran then probably wouldn't even make the conference because they're that much better. But I can look, I've got a lot of kids that I've coached that are now running for that same conference. And so they're like, yeah, and I was like, well, I was conference champ. They run about a minute faster than I ever ran, but I was like, I was conference champ. So I can still kind of give them that little bit of that little bit of banter.
That's the one thing that you are good at. And I think like even in training is adjusting your pace. Like a lot of runners that Boston day would just go, well, I'm going all out. I said I was going to be top 100. I'm going to run this time because I know that will get me there and not slow down because of the weather and jump like group to group, right? Or be smart enough in your conference championship to you go, hey, we can outrun these guys, but we don't need to do it all 6 miles. We can do it the last three. So I know that's one thing that you are very good at, and that's like in your brain running for place instead of just trying to go all out and run for time.
Well, it didn't help, or it didn't hurt to know that because back then our conference was 2 days. I had to run the 5K the next day. So I was definitely trying to do whatever I could to reserve some energy for that because that was definitely going to be tough because it was a little more competitive in that 5K.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like Boston was a tough atmosphere, but you overcame that. Would you say that was your toughest race, or what would you say was your toughest race, and how did you get through it?
I mean, I would say like weather-wise, that was the toughest race I've ever run in. And, but like I said, it kind of helped in that race, just having that plan and then just kind of, and I mean, honestly, as I was moving through people, you're feeding off the energy of the people that you're going by. But also just, I mean, Boston crowds, even on a day like that, it was less, but it still was pretty amazing to see that many people still out there cheering. And so that kind of helped a lot in a race like that. I'd say that'd be probably my toughest race. There's some other ones that were tough for other reasons. I mean, Boston 2016 for me was tough. That was more because it was a warm year. It was, I think, about 70 degrees at the start. Not quite as warm as the 2012 year that I know that Chris did, but I had some other friends that did that one. I know that was one of the worst. But 2016 was warm enough, and I'm definitely not a warm weather runner in comparison. Like if I'm gonna choose, I would choose to run in cold. I'll choose 25 degrees over 90 degrees any day to run in. Now to hang out in, yeah, I'd rather be 90 degrees, but to run in, I'm gonna choose the 25-degree day just because I melt. That's in the other. So any of those hot races, those ones are pretty tough for me. So I do remember Boston 2016 was pretty tough, and I started kind of cramping over the last 3 miles. 2024 was pretty tough for me as well. Same kind of reason. Just it was deceptively hot because it started off cool, but got warm quick that day. And I remember having like the same thing, like my calves cramped up, my hamstrings cramped up, and and I don't even know what keeps me going half the time in that point, other than I just I don't know. I figure if I stop, then I'm not gonna start again.
So you've talked a little bit about how it seems like you tend to adjust on the fly to what the race is giving you. Adam's talked about how you're really good at adjusting your pace. But has there been a race where you've made a mistake, and is there something you could share with us that our listeners could learn from?
Absolutely. A few, I've made plenty of mistakes. Probably make more mistakes than I get it right anymore, or well, especially early. But it's still funny because I think it was 2 years ago I ran the Rehoboth half marathon. I went out there to do that one. I was in really good shape, and I wanted to. I was going in kind of with the goal of going into it. I thought if I had a really good day, I can run under 70 minutes for the half marathon. But really, I was thinking sub 71 was probably more realistic. But at the same time, I was like, I just want to win the half. And usually at the Rehoboth, at least up to that point, it was decently competitive, but like the winning time would be somewhere around 74 minutes, 75 minutes. So I thought, well, even if I go out after it and I have an off day, I should still be able to hold on and be at least competing for the win. So I went out and there was a guy that was trying to make the Olympic trials, but he was in the marathon. So we kind of let him go. And then there was another guy in a half. And I remember looking at it, it's like, well, my goal is to win it. So I'm going with whoever the leader is. And we ran through the first mile and like, I think it was like 5:11 in the first mile of the half, which I've never run that fast in the first. I mean, I barely do that in a 10K in the first mile, like on a really good day. So when I went through there, I remember seeing, I was like, this might come back to bite me. But I was like, I'm gonna keep going with it because I'm hoping that this guy's gonna fall off too, because no one ever runs that fast here. Got another mile and he started to pull away from me. I hit the next mile, I think it was like 5:15. Hit the next, like I went through the first 5K, I think in like 16:10 or something like that. And I was like, what am I doing? But I just like I knew it, but I was already in too deep. I couldn't adjust myself. I think I even hit through 5 miles and like 26, maybe like 26:10, 26:20 through 5 miles. And but at that point, I was like, oh my God. I remember just thinking, I've got 8 miles to go. Like, am I even gonna make it to the finish line? And so obviously about that point, the pace started slowing a good bit. Um, I think I ended up running maybe I think I ran 74 still that day. So I still held it together, ran a pretty respectable time, but I think I finished fifth in the race. The guy that was out there in the lead, though, like a kind of redemption, I did catch him, but I didn't catch him till on that Flag Alley area. It's about mile 11 or so of the half marathon. So he did fall back to me, but it wasn't until very late. But I had four other guys that ran a lot smarter than me, past me, somewhere between 5 and 8. It was definitely a very painful experience. And then when I got done, they have that great spread afterwards and they have the cool after party. And I didn't get to really, I went to the after party, I went in there, but because I'd run so hard, um, my guts were a mess. And I pretty much spent the whole after party in the bathroom. So, so it was definitely, not, still had to learn. And I think I was just a month shy of turning 40 at that point. It was like my last race before turning 40. And I was like, yeah, you would think I would know by now how to run a half marathon. I've done enough of them, but I went after it and, paid the price. Most of my mistakes happen from that. It's going out way harder than I probably should. My first Boston, I did the same thing. I think almost everyone's first Boston, they do that same thing almost, where the downhills, you might even feel like you have the brakes on, but then when you hit the Newton hills, you realize, nope, those brakes weren't on because now everything's cramping up and I don't know what I'm doing. So my first Boston in 2014, same kind of thing. So I think, I guess something to kind of look at is knowing about what your fitness is and give yourself a range, but don't go too far beyond it in the early stages. Save it for the end because you can where maybe you lose a couple seconds here and there by not hitting the optimal pace early, but you will bleed minutes in the later portions of a race if you've went out way too hard. And I've been on that end of it. It is definitely not fun.
Hey, what year was that at Rehoboth? Were we there, Adam?
We were there. No, we weren't there. Go ahead, Woody.
I think it was 2023 or 2024 maybe. Let me think. Because I ran the marathon in 2021, and I know you guys were there when I did that, because that was actually my PR for the marathon. And then I think it was either 23 or 24. That I can't remember for sure.
Katie,
I think it was 23.
while I'm asking the next question, why don't you fact check them and see which what year it is?
Okay.
I'm just, you don't have to. No,
I'm
Woody,
pretty sure
so
it was 23.
a funny story about that 2021 marathon, like you just said, though. I know you were there, and I had run JFK, I guess, a couple weeks earlier, 2 weeks earlier. And I also ran the marathon that day. And I was like, I'm going to go out with Woody. But I was smart. That only lasted for about 400 meters. I didn't try to keep up with you for the first 25 miles. So I learned that lesson early. Don't try to keep up with Woody. Hey, when you get in the middle of a race and it starts to get difficult, I know like we talked about it on the last podcast, Chris and I did, and we kind of mentioned like we have people back at home tracking us, and we're, we just start thinking about like our friends, cheering us on from afar. But what's something that you do or think about when it gets really hard, middle of race?
Well, some of that I do a lot of that same stuff too, where since I'm coaching, I know that a lot of my kids are always invested in what I'm doing too, so I know that they're watching. So not necessarily like you're trying to, like you said, not necessarily letting them down, but you want to more so make them proud. So that's kind of part of it. Another thing I do a lot of times in the middle when things are tough is I like to think like there's certain workouts I was talking about earlier. There's big workouts. I like to kind of think about those in the middle. Like, man, I accomplished this on a random Sunday at 2 in the afternoon because we didn't want to do it in the morning and I wanted to try to get some type of, or whatever. So I did this then. I can do this now. Like that was harder. So I start to like, I think that's sometimes where that plan comes in handy for me is I can look back on like the months of training and be like, well, I did this, 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 this. I hit 100-mile weeks. I did, big long runs. I did big workouts. I hit, 80, 80 to 90% of them at what I wanted. Yeah, there's going to always be a couple that don't go the way you want, but more of them you hit than you didn't. Um, so like when I look at those things, just kind of tell me to get through. And then also realizing because you do those workouts that are big enough that you kind of get the marathon legs or the marathon feel. So you know that a lot of the rough patches sometimes that you get, they're temporary. Like you get every marathon, you're going to have this rough patch at some point, but it's probably going to go away. And then you're probably going to have another one a couple miles down the road, but it's also going to go away. So it's like trying to like, okay, just work through this. This is temporary. Get through this little bit, and then when I'm through that, I can get to the next rough patch, and then try to work through that. And so I had a friend of mine that kind of talked about this. It was actually that same teammate I was talking about that was in the 10K with. We do a running camp that we both are counselors at now, and he was something that he had told the kids about, like with running and everything else. It's like when you first start running, the first time you run, all those, like, especially run hard, all those signals in your brain are like telling you, you're going to die. You're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. But somehow you do make it. You get through it. You don't die. And then the next time those alarms go off again, but they're a little bit quieter. And the next time they get a little bit quieter because you've trained your mind through these workouts and through everything else that you can get through those things. So I think like for me, when I get in those tough parts, I start thinking about those things. Like, okay, I've done a lot of tough things. I mean, I've now been running since when I started. I started my freshman year, so I was like 14 years old. Now I'm 41. So, so I've been running for 27 years now. So so through that, like I've done a lot of things. And as they say, now you get the old man or old woman strength, right? We get to do it. We've done it for a long enough time that you can push through those things.
Well, hey, before we jump in here, Chris messaged me, and Woody, it looks like the year was 2023. You ran a
Oh yes.
1:15:03.
You took my
Katie,
job.
Oh, so I did make
I
115.
know, Katie, you ran a 1:52:50 that day, and I ran a 2:58:32 marathon. So I ran double the amount that you did, Woody, but not as fast, obviously.
And in the 2021 year, I think I ran 2:33 that year.
Yeah.
So that was my PR.
Okay.
That was a good one.
Very good.
I was just gonna say I just looked it up real quick. Yes, 2:33:02, and looks like you finished second overall. So congratulations.
Yeah, did we say he was fourth that year in 2023?
So it was fourth.
Yeah.
I knew I was fourth or fifth. I knew I was somewhere in that range. I think the guy that finished 5th might have been the guy that went out really hard at the beginning that I caught kind of late.
Well, you mentioned having an injury whenever you were in college. How in the past have you handled setbacks like those injuries or bad performances?
I would say when I first started, I was not very good at that. Like I would get really depressed. I think part of it was when I first got into running, it was kind of like my escape from like everything else that was going on in my life. Not that everything was bad or anything else, but that was just my thing. So, and I was known as the runner guy, like that's who I was. And my almost my whole identity was into that. So when I got hurt, it was like a lot of that, almost like that existential crisis, like of who am I? If I'm not a runner, who am I? So I would go through some just ups and downs and stuff like that whenever I had injuries, especially those ones that took me out for a long period of time. Now, as I've gotten older, maybe a little wiser, I'd say now it's kind of like understanding that, yes, running is a big part of what I do and a big part of what I enjoy, but it's not everything of who I am because I've got all these other things, especially now, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher, I've got all these other things. So understanding I've got that kind of helps me get through the injuries now, like in that sense, because now I can if I am injured, I can put my energy into even more energy into those things, kind of try to take my mind off of it, but still at the same time, try to get myself back because I know that the running in itself makes me a better person. When I am running, I know that I'm a better husband, I'm a better father. I know that because my wife tells me so. Because because if I'm not running for a while, she usually kicks me out of the house and says, "You need to go run because you're getting a little bit angsty." She might not say angsty. She might say, "I'll keep it PG for the podcast." But
I think we definitely have all heard that one before. So, has there ever been a point when running has been tough and you've wanted to quit and give it up and do something else? And if so, what kept you going?
I would say, well, I mean, like, I think everybody has those moments, especially in the middle of races. Probably almost everyone has those moments where you just want to quit. But as a runner, I'd say there's probably one time in particular, that first major injury I had in college. Like I said, it's the first really long, sustained time I'd had off. I had really thought about just hanging it up. Probably at the time, honestly, what made me come back, at least in the immediate, was the fact I was on scholarship and I needed the money to keep going to college. I don't think Coach Giles would have necessarily poured it from me, but I didn't. If I felt like if I was on scholarship, I needed to earn it. That was more of my own thing. So I needed to be, you know, doing my part. So, and then then once you get back into shape, you start feeling like, okay, this is good. But that during that moment, in my time, that I've definitely thought about it. I would say most of the times for me, where it was the toughest is probably during those injury times. If I can physically run, I probably will always do it. But when I'm injured, it's very easy to say, you know what, this is a nice little habit to sit around and not go out, not have to get up in the morning and go run 20 miles on a Sunday. This is kind of nice just to sit around and drink a cup of coffee and watch some TV with the kids and wake up at, way later. But at the same time, like I said earlier, after a while though, I get a lot of pent up like angsty energy, and then I'm probably not that great for them to be around either. They like it like for a couple weeks, and then they're like, "Okay, Dad, you need to go. Like you're like you're yelling, you're doing everything else, you're mad at everything." So, but yeah, there's definitely been those times, and I think, for me, like I said, I feel like it makes me a better person. That's kind of what get me back, and then also the community and just in general, like all of my best friends are runners because we're all pretty like-minded people and we're all trying to get the most out of ourselves, whatever that is. Like I tell my cross country kids, because we all have our different talent levels and what we're able to put into it. But in general, the main goal is to get the most out of yourself, and that's what we're here to do. And, I think most people are in that. So like all my friends are in that thing, in that group. So like when I'm not running, I'm not even seeing my friends. And now I'm missing that too. And it's like that free therapy session. I mean, when you're out there running with your buddies and you're talking about, God knows what. It's usually, might start with actual problems, but then after a while, it just turns into a free for all of a bunch of bull crap. But it's like the best thing ever because it's just so therapeutic. That's what kind of always kept me coming back it's, because when you're not around that, you miss it. It's like, and, you know, God willing, I'll be able to continue doing this for a long, long period. Cause if not, I don't know. I might be out. I might be like, the old people you see at the mall walking with the weights and find someone else to walk beside just so I can have that same, feeling.
I can tell our listeners from experience that when Woody goes on a run, he talks the entire time. I absolutely love it. So, two quick stories. So, the very first time I think I went running with Woody, Kevin came, and then I think there was like three other people, and I didn't know Woody then, and I was like, this is going to be so awkward. Nobody's going to talk to me. Boy, was I wrong. Woody talked. We probably ran for 60 minutes, and Woody talked about 58 of those minutes. It was great. I loved it. Like, it took so much pressure off of me. And then just what, a month ago, Woody texted me and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go running?" And I was like, "You live like 3 hours away. When?" And he's like, "In 15 minutes, basically." He's like, "I'm in your neighborhood. When do you like, can you come run?" So a couple hours later, we met up and ended up on a track running around circles. And I just remember we got back in the car and Katie was like, "Woody likes to talk, doesn't he?" Like, not in a bad way, but I was like, "Oh yeah, we had a conversation." Like, there's sometimes you go run and like there's moments of silence, but like, yeah, it really is one of the best things about running with other people. It's like you said, it's therapeutic. Chris and I talk all the time while we're running. We didn't do it enough, so we started a podcast so we could keep talking to each other. So
Just to be clear, I was on the track too, and so every time they came around, they were just talking the whole time, so it definitely wasn't a criticism. I also have been known to talk nonstop on runs, so
Well, so that was the kind of funny thing is because you never know a stranger on a run. After you run with someone for an hour, now all of a sudden you got a new best friend. Like that's all it
yeah.
takes.
yeah, exactly.
Adam, I've got an idea for a new ultra event.
What
You
is
want to
it?
you want to hear it? We
Sure.
get Katie, Woody, and our boy Luke together, and they have to run, and the last one to stop talking is the winner.
Look,
I don't think I can run as fast as Woody, so
no, hey, one of the other things that Woody is amazingly good at, if you follow Woody on Strava, you will see he has workouts where he's running 5 minute
oh.
pace, and then he has long runs where he's doing like 950 pace, and
Actually,
that's amazing to me.
we've yeah, we've talked about that before, about Woody's running, because we have other friends
Yeah,
who do the same thing who are so good at making the easy days easy, but the hard days are really fast. So that's respectable.
And I'll just pile on that when I see someone with Woody's talent that is able to do that, it makes me feel a lot better when I go out and I do my slower day. Even though in my head I'm struggling with it every time, thinking I'm not working hard enough. I'm like, if these people can do it, I can do it. So I appreciate that.
I completely agree. Same here.
I do the same thing too.
Sure.
I look up at like the Kenyans and see they're training at like 8 minute pace and they're running sub 2 hour marathons now and
right. Well, Woody, you are a very accomplished runner, Boston multiple times, multiple sub 240s. You're also a coach for high schoolers and some college and then beyond. What's a couple pieces of advice that you might give to somebody who's just starting out their running career or journey?
I'd say the first thing is give it some time because like I was saying kind of earlier, that first time you run, all those alarms are going off in your head, just like I can't do this, I'm gonna die, and all that kind of stuff. We always kind of tell the kids, give it 2 weeks. Give it 2 weeks of consistent training, and you'll start to feel a difference. And when you start to feel a difference, you start to get kind of hooked to it. Like, oh my gosh, like this feels so much better. And you just, I don't know. And I've very rarely met someone after they got through the 2 weeks and then they kind of kept going where they feel worse after a run than they did before the run started. But at the same time, give yourself grace too, especially if you're brand new to it. Don't expect to be, with the people that have been doing it for years and years and years. Give yourself grace and just, think of it as you're on your own journey at that point. And, yeah, you can get competitive eventually, but when you're new to it, I think the first part is when you're new to it, you got to learn just to be, just to improve on yourself. And then once you've done that for a little while, then you can start working on that. Okay, now I want to race and now I want to do that. And so I think it's just kind of giving yourself that little bit of grace and understanding. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Okay, now that we've talked about the past, let's talk about the current. What are you chasing? Are you going for time, distance, something else?
So, as Adam alluded to earlier, I have recently joined the Masters category, even though I have not yet run JFK, even though I said I was going to, which it will happen. Although, like now, because I always help out with it, so I'm always there. But, you know, I always feel bad 'cause if I do that, then I don't get to help out. But I know I need to do it. I don't know Mike wants me to do it at some point. So it will happen, I promise. I just don't know when. But I'd say now, just some different things. I I don't know. I think a lot of my PRs are probably behind me. Maybe I can, possibly get a marathon PR. I doubt I'm gonna get a 5K PR again, although it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I think my PR for 5K only happened like 6 years ago. Like I was in my mid 30s and I ran 15:30. So like I would, love to, but I don't think that's gonna happen again. But I kind of want to do some things on the Masters circuit. I'm actually looking at doing the U.S. Championships for the Masters in Ohio in July and on the track because I haven't been on the track in, well, probably since college. So I think it'd just be fun to do something like that, get on the track and run a 5K and see what I can do. I'm thinking about doing that. Kind of talked about doing the final countdown and doing something different like that and throwing my, and I know like I've got a couple guys, Andy and Joe are pretty well on board. They're pretty excited about doing that as well. So kind of just doing a bunch of random stuff. Put myself out there a little bit more because that's one thing I know that for me that I always say I need to do more races or I need to do more things because I usually it's like this focus on one race. I do this one race, then I might run a couple little races along the way, but they're not anything big, and then I go and I'm focused on the next one or whatever. A lot of that's to do with my schedule, and it's hard for me to go and race all the time because I'm usually coaching. So on the weekends, I'm like with those kids. So it's like, so I've got that, or my kids are into like 100 different things, now too, because they're like, both my kids are in karate, my daughter's in dance, my son does basketball. Now he's doing track and cross country as well for the middle school. So it's like, I'm always running somewhere else, and it's hard for me to say, all right, I want to do this race, and I just need to start doing more on a whim, not thinking, okay, I got to train for this race to do it. And that's always been my thing. I always felt like I need to train, then I can go do this. Where I just need to start saying, all right, I'm going to go do this on the weekend because it'll be fun. And I need to do more of that. That's something else. Kind of a goal of mine in the future is like, hey, there's a race coming up this weekend. I've got nothing planned. I'm just going to go and run this race. I might not be 100% ready. It's not going to be a PR race, but that's okay. I'm just going to go and run it because it'll be fun to be around the community.
All right. So my next question is one of my favorite ones. If you could go back and tell your younger running self one thing, what would it be?
Probably doing a lot more of what I do now back then. Because when I first started running, like I was like a lot of other people and I ran way too hard all the time. I remember in high school, by the time I was a senior in high school, if I didn't run under 7 minutes a mile on all my runs, I thought it was a waste of a run. Like it was like every run had to be at a certain pace. And then I brought that into college and I did the same thing into college. And that was where I had my first injury because in high school I could handle it because I was only running, maybe 40, 45, 50 miles a week. In college, all of a sudden I was running 80, 90, even up to 100 miles a week and trying to do the same thing. And there's where that I wasn't recovering. I thought I was because I felt okay on the runs, but I wasn't recovering. So kind of telling myself, then, hey, take your easy days easy, work hard on the hard days, and and probably I think I would have seen a lot more success when I was younger, and I had a little bit more fast twitch muscles and things like that. They were still working and firing a little bit better than they are now. Because it'd have been cool to see, hindsight's always 2020. We're wiser now than what we were then. Back then we thought we were invincible. We could just keep doing what we're doing and it's gonna work. I would love to have kind of told myself, hey, go easier on these days. You don't need to go run just because someone's ahead of you. You don't need to, show who's tougher by, oh, you had a workout yesterday and we're gonna run 10 miles at 6 minute pace just because that guy's a step ahead of you and you don't want to let him a step ahead. I did way too much of that, I think, when I was younger.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, something I could probably learn and incorporate into my running right now. But Woody, I have one final question for you, and then I'll let Chris and Katie ask any questions they have, and then we'll jump into the after party there. So, my last question for you is, what was your greatest racing accomplishment, and why was it the 2025 Lock to Lock Marathon?
You know, believe it or not, that's up there because that was I've won a lot of races through my career in 5Ks, half marathons. That was my first marathon win. I've never won a marathon in my career, and that was my first one. And that's actually will hold a special place forever for me. So I've got my little picture up on my mantle still and everything. So yes, that was definitely up there for me.
I think you're the very first marathon winner that we had that broke the tape twice because I dropped the ball and didn't have the tape out ready for you when you came across the finish line. So I apologize for that, but I think we made it right. So
Oh yeah. Well, it's definitely you know, at halfway, I could definitely see why they didn't think it was going to be me. With the other guy who had about an 8 minute lead on me at that point, I didn't think it was going to be me either.
yeah, well, it was a great race day. I had to throw a shameless plug in there for Lock to Lock.
Got a couple athletes that are looking forward to running that coming up.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. All right, Katie or Chris, do you have anything before we jump over to the after party?
Not me. I just want to say this has been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed hearing Woody talk about his successes and his training plan. And I'm looking forward to this after party to see how he handles your questions.
And I just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed our time in Boston recently, and I enjoyed spending the day with Molly and the kids. They were the ones who were helping me with all the bags, and they had their own set of bags. We had plenty of stuff to carry around Boston that day, but we were a little team, and your daughter was holding on to my bag, and we were like a little train trying to weave through people in Boston. But it was awesome getting to see them, see you, and it seems like you have a really supportive team behind you at home as well.
Absolutely. And funny little thing, Molly was like, when we coming back, Molly's like, I would travel with them anywhere. Like I loved it. Like Katie just said, "This is what we're doing." I was like, "I love it." She made a decision. We went.
And I
She really.
and I'm not used to that. We were both kind of like, "Well, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?" And so I kind of had to make decisions. And Adam can tell you that is not actually my forte. I get at school all day, I get very decision fatigued. So I come home and don't want to make any decisions. But yeah, it was fun. We worked it out. It really was. And when you guys were at the start line after we went to the Beaumains, which is the new name of the pizza place that Adam didn't know the name of at all from the last podcast. I was texting Molly and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired and I didn't even run today." And she's like, "I know, me too." We were just sitting in the car watching you guys have your time.
Yeah, she's like, "I just want to go back to the hotel."
We were on the same
Okay,
page.
well, to echo what Chris and Katie said, this has been a lot of fun, Woody. Before we jump into the after party, Katie, what's in your cup? What are you drinking?
H2O as always.
Good. You're always so good hydrating. Chris, what about you? What's in your cup today?
I've got a hazy IPA from Elder Pine called Dense Broom.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Was that from your trip?
No, that's one of the ones that Jake Bradley brought to Cushwa.
Yeah. I'm drinking a Sam Adams cold snap. What do you have? What do you got, Woody?
I have got an Alpha Gator Imperial IPA from Abita.
Yeah, Woody always has that fancy IPA drinks too. So I knew that was going to be a good one. All right, Woody, the after party here. It is. Let's see. I got 9 questions, and they are designed for you to give just one word answers. Okay, so you don't no need to elaborate. Just pick basically A or B, and then we'll move on to the next question. All right, you ready?
All right, let's go.
All right. Road or trail?
Road.
Morning or evening runs?
Morning.
Long run or speed workouts?
Long run.
What is your favorite distance to race?
Probably the half,
All right. Treadmill, yes or no?
if needed.
That's what everybody answers. All right. Hills or flat?
Hills.
All right, solo run or group run?
Group run.
Post race treat.
Beer.
Beer. All right, this is gonna be a hard one. I'll give you a sentence if you need it. Okay, one word to describe your racing style.
Gosh, one word to describe racing style.
I know what word I would pick, but I'm gonna let you to pick.
Would say, oh gosh, I don't know. That's a tough one. Racing style. Fearless.
Fearless. Okay, that's good. I was gonna say tactical, but yeah,
That's probably a better one.
no, I like fearless though. Yeah, that's good. So, all right, well done, Woody. Again, we appreciate you joining us tonight for the podcast, and I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. That's for sure.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed my time.
Thanks, Woody.
Thanks, Woody.
Thank you.
That's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the C&O. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing.